have learned actually the hard way that I have to actually be careful about setting goals and really make sure those goals are in alignment with the life that I want to have. I have experienced earlier in my business when I was having some good success, I set very ambitious revenue goals for myself until the point where I realized, oh, wait a minute. I'm not sure it's actually more important to me to meet this revenue goal than to maybe not be working nights and weekends, to maybe have a better experience with my daughters and my partner. Welcome to the Sunlight Tax Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, design nerd, tax pro, author of Taxes for Humans, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative, wellness, or mission-driven entrepreneur who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello, beautiful. I want to bring you something on the personal side today. I've had some feedback from various listeners of the podcast and just of my writing in general that anytime I bring up the importance of running a small ethical business, it feels like fuel for you. And in that spirit, I thought we all could use that. Who couldn't use a little fuel, a little fire for the hard work that you do when you are a solo practitioner, right? It's just hard. Everything falls on you when you are running a small business and you are the only owner or you are a full-time freelancer. It's a lot already to just do the work that you are doing, whether it is a service, a product. And on top of that, you have all of the admin, all of the marketing, all of the sales. It's really challenging and it can feel so overwhelming that it's my passion to support people like this, right? And why? In part because I am one and I really understand in my bones how hard it is, but also how rewarding on the side of just serving people that you really care about, seeing them flourish in the world. There's really nothing more gratifying than doing that and just feeling the pride of like, I helped build that. I helped make that stronger. You know, it feels so good. So I just want to speak to you if you are struggling in the trenches of freelance work. Maybe you're even new to full-time self-employment. I know I've been speaking to a lot of people in the tech industry, designers in tech, some of whom have been laid off and so are making a forced transition into full-time freelance contract work. And some people who are starting their own businesses at this point. My own partner is one of these people. And it's a scary transition. So I just want to give you some words of encouragement today. Talk about, I'm going to be real about how difficult the journey can be. And it is. It is hard, but it's hard in the way that weight training is hard. It's rewarding. There is something you get out of it. And let's not forget that part. So this is my episode today on the Zen journey of small business. I wrote a newsletter this week that talked about small business ego death. And that's a little exaggerated. Of course, it's a very headline-y thing to say. And I hope nobody took that in a super literal way, thinking that, things are that dire for me. They're not. But definitely, I feel that my own voyage as a small business owner, and man, it's been an evolution, that running a small business has been one of the most spiritual journeys of my life. And I know that sounds incredibly ironic and strange in our capitalist culture, especially if you're coming from a part of the world, whether it's the nonprofit world, the arts world, the creative world, maybe the healing world, where you feel a little adverse to capitalism. You're not so sure it's for the good. And I just want to say that I actually see a way and feel very personally that small scale accountable capitalism can really transform people in a positive way, that it's wonderful. I do want to be clear. I see a version of capitalism, I think we all do, that is metastasized, unregulated, unchecked, unfettered, and doing way too powerful with way too little accountability. And that is not what I'm talking about. I too am skeptical of that, feel very negative feelings about things like that. But what I am talking about when I see the positive side, it's people like you. It's small practitioners, small businesses that have accountability to the people that they serve. They are accountable for what's in their products, for how they pay their workers, for how they serve their clients, right? When you are that way, there's a beautiful cycle where you offer something to someone that is more valuable to them than the dollars you charge. And that is the value that they get out of the thing that you offer. It's kind of a beautiful concept, right? And if you do a terrible job, if you treat them terribly, if you give them a product that makes them sick, they will never buy from you again. And that's a good thing. That's accountability. Like, part of the important part here is that you need to really show up and serve people well, right? And when you do that, like the people who are doing that, that's the people that I serve and that's who I love. That's actually the part of capitalism, the part of small business that I really want to help perpetuate in this world, because I think this is where good is done, right? So with that said, let me talk about some of the ways that I see running a small business as a bit of a spiritual journey and just share with you some of my wisdom gained in 10 years as a small business owner. Technically, I've had maybe 25 years of being a small business owner because in my life before starting Sunlight Tax, I was, and I still am, a professional artist. And that also is running a small business, one with, some real sticky feelings about capitalism. But now I'm much more squarely in the zone of small business and capitalism. And so let's talk about it. Okay. So first, I want to say when you are the only owner of your business, your mental health is the company's health. And so taking your mental health seriously, taking the health of your body seriously, actually is a pretty important thing to do in terms of your business success. I'm coming to you as a person who moves my body every day, who's gotten quite serious about weight training in the last few years. I want to be around for a long time. I want to be healthy. And I also, honestly, I've been through some really hard things in the last few years. The devastation of Hurricane Helene and what that did to me. And also just some shifts in the market, shifts in my client, just a lot of change all at once at a time that, because of my loss in Helene is not the easiest time for me personally. And so focusing in on my mental health and what I need to be healthy has meant to slow down at Sunlight Tax, right? And I would say it came at the expense of Sunlight Tax, but that's actually not true. Slowing down is actually the fastest way to recover for me, because I actually was getting to a point where I felt so burnt out, so depressed and demoralized. Again, I lost my entire art studio in Hurricane Helene. That's a really big grief to me, and it's something that will never have true resolution. It's just a difficult thing thrown at me in life, right? I'm not asking you to cry for me. I just want you to kind of understand that, whatever is happening in your life as a business owner can have an effect on how you run your business, of course. It can also have an effect on how you receive information as a business owner. I realized the hard way that I was experiencing some PTSD about something I had built and worked on for 20 years, just getting wiped away overnight, right? And so when I started getting blinking red lights indicators in Sunlight Tax about, some programming changes that were becoming clear I need to make, I started going into panic mode and really actually experiencing some PTSD about my hurricane loss and over applying that knowledge to Sunlight Tax in a way that was not actually real, right? So this was a moment, and I'm really lucky that I had a business coach who helped me see this, where I was like, I'm not helping my business right now. I'm operating out of panic and from a place of trauma, and this isn't healthy for my clients. It's not healthy for me. It's certainly not a place from which I'm going to make any good decisions. And so I really deliberately took a hard look and I stepped way back in my business. Frankly, just to get healthy again, just to start, going to a therapist and like dealing with my traumatic loss, trying to separate that from my existing business so that I can come back in feeling fresh and, able to do the hard work of running Sunlight Tax. I'm happy to say that I feel much better having taken a couple months in slow down mode. And it feels fun again. I actually am finding joy in the process. And that to me is an indicator that I'm feeling much better. So I say this to you as a small business owner, your mental health is the company's health. And it is not something you can just ignore and put on hold. It is something sometimes, I hope you never get to the point that I got to last spring, but it can sometimes get so blinking red and hot that you're going to be forced to step away from your business. And it's better that it's your choice. Okay. More on the Zen journey of running a small business. Receiving feedback. Receiving feedback is, I think, one of the most difficult things in a business. It can feel so triggering to get, especially when you are operating, you're one person and you're starting to speak to larger groups of people, doing, one-to-many offerings, like to a newsletter, to a social media following, to a podcast following. And you start hearing things about things they don't like about your program, things they don't like about you personally. If you're a woman, if you are a person from a historically marginalized group, you probably get a little more of the personal stuff than a, straight white man might. This is pretty well documented. I think all of us who are in these groups know that this is true. And it's really important and difficult to sort out the stuff that is coming from other people that is their issue from what is your issue, something that you actually need to address and fix. And sometimes people are not that nice about the way they give you feedback. And this is really challenging, right? I have often wished that I could have more of a Teflon quality, and I just frankly don't. I just don't. Things stick to me. I absolutely hate internet comments because even though most of the comments I get are really kind and lovely and wonderful and I enjoy them, I do get really nasty, awful comments on occasion, and it makes me hate being on the internet altogether. I know from everybody who's got a large following, a large audience, I know this plagues everyone. I know I'm not alone. And basically, if you look at anybody who's got a big following, that is a person who's endured some really nasty internet hate. And that's hard. It's just awful. Sometimes when it's stronger than others, I consider just throwing the whole thing away just because I don't want to receive stuff like that. That's an option. But I think for now, it's worth it to me to serve the people that I serve and step around those ugly comments. I have learned some ways to deal with them, though I never like them. But even with that said, as a small business owner, you get feedback that just, it is hard to receive feedback in an objective way, just about, oh, that's a change that, that's a misunderstanding or a miscommunication on my part. I'm going to need to address that. Or maybe my product or service is not serving people where they're at right now. Maybe things are changing. People are feeling different from how they did a year, 2 years ago. And I'm going to need to make some changes. Those are healthy responses to have to the kinds of comments you might get coming in that show you need to make a change. Sometimes it's really hard to hear because it feels so personal, right? And maybe you feel attachment to the program that you're offering, the service that you're offering, the product that you're offering, and it just feels hard to adjust it. Maybe all you can think about is how difficult it will be to make a change. So I'm just here to say, I don't really have a solution for that other than trying to define a very clear boundary about when you take feedback. I like to separate feedback and input mode from sales mode. I find that when I'm doing a big sales push, I need to be in the best and brightest energy that I can muster. And it's not a good time to be receiving feedback that can be hard and that can be challenging to just my confidence, right? I want to receive feedback about my programs. I want my stuff to be as good as it can be at all times. I want to be honest and ethical about receiving feedback, but it doesn't mean I have to receive it every day. There can be seasons of feedback. There can be days of the week of feedback. There can be specific months you dedicate to feedback. You don't have to input that at every moment. This is some hard learning I have had from just being tossed around and derailed from too much feedback at the wrong times in my business. On a similar note, I think one of the sort of Zen spiritual journeys of running a small business are understanding, a lot like the serenity prayer, the things you can control and the things you can't control, right? If you are listening to this now, you have probably been affected by higher interest rates. You have probably been affected by tariffs. You have probably seen prices rising for the cost of goods of what you offer, right? Not all of those things are within your control. Those are things you have to deal with, but you can't necessarily do much about. Likewise, your clients might be feeling more nervous right now. They might be feeling like they have less discretionary income. They might be feeling like they want to ask more questions about your program because they're being much more selective and careful about where they spend their money. Those are valid things for any client to do and to feel, but it's hard as a business owner. And so my metric for that is to use a metaphor of a surfer. So I am a surfer on the ocean. I am very much and totally responsible for my business and my body, right? My behavior, my business, what I offer, right? The way that people interact with me, I can control that. And so to me, I will wax the surfboard. I might even completely overhaul or replace the surfboard. It is my job to make sure that that surfboard is in the best working order it possibly can be. And also, I might myself, as the rider, need to gain new skills. I might need to get stronger leg muscles, better balance, right? There are things I can control, and it's my job to control them. But there's the ocean. The ocean is bigger than me. It's bigger than my business. The ocean might be interest rates. It might be climate change. It might be a very challenging and divisive political environment. The ocean is something you are riding. You are riding the waves as they come to you. And what you can do is control how you ride the waves, but you can't stop the waves themselves. And this also, sometimes the ocean gets too terrible. Sometimes there's an earthquake and then a tsunami. And you just might not survive through things that are not your fault at all. And I am here post Hurricane Helene to tell you that is very much true. And I experienced it myself. But sometimes it does present a new opportunity. And sometimes you can learn to change the way that you're riding the waves, the way that you have your surfboard. And I think that's a good thing. Knowing the difference is the key there. One of the other Zen journeys I have had in my business is about goals. Now, I know that we're all kind of different on this. I know not everybody is as driven by goals as I am, but oh man, give me a goal and I'm going to crush it. Goals to me are something I become maniacal about and have to meet. So I have learned actually the hard way that I have to actually be careful about setting goals and really make sure those goals are in alignment with the life that I want to have. I have experienced earlier in my business when I was having some good success, I set very ambitious revenue goals for myself, right? And I was pretty maniacal about meeting them until the point where I realized, oh, wait a minute. I'm not sure it's actually more important to me to meet this revenue goal than to maybe not be working nights and weekends, to maybe have a better experience with my family and my daughters and my partner. Maybe actually it's worth more to me to be available in the evenings. And this revenue goal is going to have to be balanced with the fact that I don't want to work in the evenings. I want to have dinner with the family. So that to me has been a big journey. I don't know if you're motivated by goals the way that I am, but to me, it has forced me to put goals into my business that are more personal, especially as a solo owner, where again, a revenue goal is nobody's job but mine. And my personal health and well-being can sometimes be in conflict with it, right? So sometimes I'm dialing back strictly business related goals because part of my other goals, personal goals, actually factor in because I'm just one person with one life. And so maybe I'm dialing back a revenue goal because I'm dialing up a life goal of availability and connection with people I love and care about. Happiness is another of these Zen pieces of the journey for me. Something really important I learned in this era that I was making very, very aggressive goals is that happiness doesn't come from meeting a goal. It's satisfying to meet a goal. It can be really wonderful. I'm not saying don't do it, but I have listened to many podcasts. I have talked to many fellow business owners who have met really big goals that you might think you want, right? Whether it's 100,000 followers on Instagram or $1 million in revenue. Name your really big, ambitious goal as a solo business owner, right? The fact is, all of those people, 201, didn't feel happier the day they made $1 million, the day they got that 100,000th Instagram follower. If they were happy before, they remain happy. If they were not happy before, they remained unhappy. Happiness is not coming from that external source. And so this has been actually kind of a hard lesson as I make goals and try to meet them. Because again, that life balance, this is some of the wisdom that is really coming into play for me as a business owner 10 years in, moving past my 10-year mark as a business. My life, my happiness, these things actually matter often more than, big audience numbers, big revenue numbers. I want to have a life that I enjoy. I want to move through my week having days that feel good and not days that feel awful. Another thing that I find so important, and I credit a lot of this to the design world. If you don't know, I had a couple of years that I spent working in an interactive design agency in New York City. And I was coming in myself at the time as a visual artist. I didn't really have training in the design world, but I was trying to get some. I loved the design world. And one of the things I learned in the design world was about negotiating and working with clients. I just got to see it happen a lot as we worked on these big contracts. And I realized, you can negotiate for what's important to you up front. And a lot of times, it's not as adversarial as I had thought or been trained to believe it was in the arts. The arts tend to be pretty handshakey and wink, wink, nudge, nudge, which does not protect you, right? Pretending everything is done through friendship, pretending all our business meetings are actually getting a drink with friends or having a party is not actually that beneficial to me. I actually prefer saying, this is a business meeting. This is a sales call. I actually like that clarity better. The ambiguity of the art world, frankly, bothered me. And now that I've seen it done another way, and especially in the design world, which is creative and does prioritize really top-notch creative work, but in a business context, I've really appreciated that. So I got to witness in this design agency lots of contract negotiation. I myself was doing a lot of contract negotiation. And one of the things I loved was noticing how the contract sometimes wasn't always speaking to really what that person's priorities were. So having empathy for the person that you are serving, that you are working with in the business is so useful to just negotiate well and make everybody feel good walking away. There's lots of ways to get a win-win situation in your business by just understanding not just the stated goals, but some of the below the surface goals of the person that you're working with. And likewise, articulating, being clear about some of the things that are important to you. I'll give you a very clear example. So I give a lot of tax workshops to a lot of organizations. I have spoken to real estate firms teaching independent real estate brokers how to do their taxes. I've spoken to large membership organizations, granting organizations, universities, you name it. So I'm all the time looking at contracts for these speaking, teaching opportunities, right? And The contracts have a lot of common themes, but they're all a little different. A lot of them are taken from boilerplate legal language, right? Written by somebody who's not the person sending it to me. It's like a contract that they use over and over again. So they'll send me the contract, and sometimes that contract will be really grabby and really aggressive. And who knows what era that was written by what lawyer with what goals, right? It's often not written by the person sending it to me in the first place. But a lot of times, I'll read the contract, and yes, I always read the contract. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful I've never signed a contract I haven't read. But a lot of times it'll say things like, we own all the intellectual property when you speak with our group. We own it forever, and we're going to record it. And to me, that could kill my business. That could actually threaten my business. And so I'm very careful not to sign a contract that ever has any language like that. But again, I also know that the person who sent me the contract probably doesn't know that was in there and didn't do it with any intention to be unkind or aggressive with me. So I just come back with them and I say, hey, this contract looks great, but paragraph 5 says that you would own everything that I say and that you can record it. And I just can't sign that. So, just change that and then we're good, right? So it's really in good faith. And it's really just stating out loud, like, I have this thing that's really important to me that would be hamstrung by agreeing to this. And I'm going to need you to shift that in order to move forward. I've actually never had anybody push back when I did that. Sometimes it's really, really easy and they can make a same day change and it's simple. Sometimes they have to go through some hoops and send it to the university's lawyer and it takes a while. And I just sit tight and I say, thanks for changing it. It doesn't have to be antagonistic. And that's one of the most wonderful parts of negotiating that I have learned and really love. That people often don't know what's in their contracts and you can just say what you want. Just say what you want. Be clear. The last point I want to bring up on the Zen journey of running a small business is about ethics. I want to say this specifically because I come out of the world that is very adverse to money and adverse to capitalism. And so I have been around a lot of people who feel suspicious of taking money. They sort of want and seek out an indirect relationship with that. This can happen in the world of nonprofits. This can happen in the world of the arts, because these are places where people don't orient on a sort of business mindset orientation. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying these are cultures that exist. And I've seen a lot of people kind of prefer to set up things where they're asking for a donation rather than to say, you are paying me and I am delivering this thing. But I want to say that over time, my thinking has really evolved on this to a point where I love and prefer the ethics and accountability of a direct relationship with the person who is paying you and what you are giving them directly, how you serve that person who is giving you a payment. I actually have found that when you triangulate, right, when it's a donation that goes over here, when there's a board involved, sometimes this can corrupt that accountability relationship in a way that is not productive. What I love as a business owner is that I make an offering, I offer services, maybe products sometimes, and I'm very clear. Again, this is where clarity is important. I am clear about what is inside. That is the ethics on my side. I need to be clear about what is on offer and what I will deliver and any parameters there or restrictions that the person buying needs to know. That is my ethical duty as a business owner. Their duty is to look at what's offered, see what the restrictions are, note if it feels like a fit or not a fit to them, and they make the decision if the value that I give, those items that I'm offering, are worth the dollars to them. And to some people, it will be worth it, and to others, it will not. In economics, there's a whole term and study of this called the cost curve. A cost curve is this plot, this graph that you can make about who in a population is willing to pay X tiny amount for something and who is willing to pay Y super high amount. And you can plot sort of how this tends to fall onto a curve with some few people willing to pay a whole lot for a certain item because it has a special amount of value. And then there's a whole world of looking into why those people value things that way. And some people who could kind of take it or leave it. They'll only get it if it's really cheap, right? And so there's a whole economics about picking prices along that curve and who you're serving and what the psychology is and who's perceiving the value in a different way, right? So I love that ethical call and response relationship where it's very direct. And then you deliver what you said you were going to deliver. They pay what they said they were going to pay. And everybody can walk away having been very clear about what was involved in that transaction and feeling like it happened well. This is the accountability that I really particularly love in an ethical small business. And I think I want to leave you with because I think it is kind of a little bit of magic. If you're interested, I could talk more about that ethical two-sided equation because it also really steps into things like pricing and demonstrating value and clarifying where you do and don't do things, like actually showing what you need as the business owner and what you expect from the client. There's lots there to dig into. But just to close, what I want to bring you back to is just a reminder about who I serve and why. It's you. It's people who are on this journey with me. I don't know if you have felt this sort of spiritual or ego pull that I have in running a small business, the highs and lows of it, the difficulty, the strength building of it. I hope you have, and I would love to hear about your journey. Definitely feel free to send me a message. You can reach out at Sunlight Tax on Instagram and drop me a line, or hello@sunlighttax.com. But I'm curious if you have felt this kind of Zen or this kind of spiritual journey that I have in running a business. I find it very difficult, but in the most gratifying way. A lot like lifting weights. And one of the things that I find the absolute most gratifying about it is getting to serve people like you. I am not the only person out there who really cares about doing deeply good work, excellent work, and serving people who I find to be kind, caring, ethical, and doing good work in this world. It's the whole reason that I built my company, Sunlight Tax. The point is to support and amplify the amazing work that you do by, in my case, helping you just set up the technical side, the scary stuff that can derail you, like audits, legal obligations, kind of knowing what you need to do on the technical side so that can just stop being a headache and stop being in your way and just exist there as a structure to support you as you go on to do that amazing work that you do. The way that you operate matters. Who you serve matters. How you serve matters. Honestly, you matter. So I hope you've enjoyed that little Zen journey of a small scale capitalist. Let me know what you think. And if you're interested, you can probably sense as I talk about this that I am on a journey right now, right at this moment. I'm doing a lot of work behind the scenes to build a new offering, which is a 2-day intensive to help set up your business. It's really different. And I'm trying to, respond to all that feedback that I took in the last few months and build something that feels really useful and really valuable to you as a small business owner. So if you want to check out what's involved in that intensive, if you want to sign up for the wait list, there's no commitment. You join the wait list. You don't have to join, but you will get notified when I do open the doors. So if you're interested in just checking out what the intensive is about, who it's for, how it will work, and you want to get on the wait list to be notified when it's open, you can go to sunlighttax.com/waitlist. All right, you wonderful human being doing amazing work in this world. I'm so happy to connect with you. Thanks for listening today, and I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. It really helps. I'm so grateful. My tax guide, Taxes for Humans, is available wherever you buy books and at sunlighttax.com/book. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.